Hey everyone, welcome to the PCS-Proof Podcast, where we're covering the vital things you need to know to thrive in every season of military life. I'm your host and MilSpouse fitness expert, Grace Barnick-Damazo, and I encourage you to join me each week as we dive deep into topics like fitness, wellness, and entrepreneurship as a military spouse so that you can maintain your own sense of identity and purpose, conquering every transition with strength and resilience. As we journey together, you can expect uplifting conversations and insights. We'll share some laughs, and you can count on me to keep it real so that together we can become truly PCS-proof. Now let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the PCS-Proof Podcast. Today, we have an extraordinary guest who has been transforming lives of women through health and fitness. I'm thrilled to have Taylor Hester of Taylor Hester Fitness with us today. Taylor is a former collegiate athlete turned fitness coach with an unapologetically real approach to health, wellness, and nutrition. With a strong foundation in athletics and personal training and a passion for helping women achieve their fitness goals at all stages of life, Taylor offers personalized coaching that caters to individual needs. Through her one-on-one virtual coaching membership, as well as her Strong at Home program and postpartum core course, she has inspired countless women to lead healthier, stronger, and more active lives. Not only is Taylor a certified fitness expert, but she's a fellow MilSpouse, and she shares all of the real ups and downs of military life on her social media platforms and manages to do it in a positive, lighthearted way. Her Instagram at taylor.hester.fitness is a hub of inspiration, no BS workout routines and nutrition tips, and real life success stories. Taylor's commitment to the mom community and her ability to connect with people on a personal level sets her apart in a sea of, shall I say, fake social media. And with a passion to make fitness achievable, enjoyable, and sustainable, Taylor has built a thriving online community where she shares her expertise and encourages others to embrace a healthier lifestyle. Taylor, there's so much that I feel like you and I are aligned on, and in a world of misinformation and quick fixes, I just think it's really important to get above all that noise and just be able to share your story and your mission with our listening community. I'm a huge fan. And it's just an absolute pleasure to have you with us here today. So welcome to the show, Taylor.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me. That was such a wonderful intro. Thank you so much.
Oh, it was fun to write it because it's all true. And it's just really fun to get to chat with you. I'm not quite sure how you and I originally connected.
Oh, there's no telling.
Yeah, exactly, with social media. But I know that the first time that we messaged was last summer. You had just PCS to your current duty station, and you posted some videos. You were in a very long battle with housing over your AC unit not working.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
And I couldn't help but reach out because I could empathize. We were also in a housing unit that just straight up had no AC. And so our house sat at about 85 degrees all day, all night. And I was losing my mind. So I knew how you must have been feeling on top of just moving, taking care of kids, pets, just getting used to a new location. So I just could really empathize. And it just made me feel a little bit better to know that I was not alone. And that really is one of your biggest strengths, is to just be able to reach out and connect with people and not be afraid to share the shitty stuff. So I could really empathize and relate to you. So I'm assuming that things are better now. You have AC.
Yes, my AC is running very well. It's very loud. I think anyone that's familiar with Fort Carson, which is where we're currently stationed at, is familiar with the privatized housing company that owns it. And they've been in hot water for a while. So at this point, anytime I have an issue where I recognize that this could escalate quickly, it just becomes like, I will just document it. And it almost always becomes an ICE complaint because I know that that's how it gets solved.
Because otherwise you're trying to be polite and whatever, nothing gets done.
Yeah. I think even when you're dealing with things that are concerning, especially housing, like we all know that military housing is not glamorous. And, there have been countless examples of unsafe living conditions. We all have a story. You can still be respectful, especially because the people that are hearing your complaint are normally the bottom of the food chain themselves. And so I think, there's a level of patience and respect that, you have for any other human being. And then you realize when that complaint is just being kind of like passed along, that you utilize those other things. And for me, that is the ICE complaint.
Yeah, you've learned that it's not a good use of your time and patience.
If it's a light bulb, I'll do it myself. If, my AC unit is out or, there's water in my house, yeah, it's going to need to get fixed right away. And if it doesn't, I know the channels I need to pursue.
Absolutely. Yeah. As you were talking, I'm thinking of like 5 different stories I could have about housing, but
And I hate that that's the way it is,
I
truthfully.
know.
Like, this housing is not something we should have to worry about, but every duty station that we've lived at, I either have experienced a housing faux pas or I know someone close to me that has had a really bad housing story. And I think that is an area when we talk about like military spouse, not even like trauma that we laugh at, but like things that could be better within the military community and affect positive change. It would be the, safe housing and, really holding these privatized companies accountable. But I know that's not why I'm on your podcast, is to
No,
talk
but
about,
you're making me think
about housing.
it is a trauma. It's a little T trauma for sure, because we laugh about it. We like come back after the trauma is over. We like laugh about it. We commiserate or whatever, but it doesn't change the fact that it's going to happen the next time you move to the next place. And you're right. We probably should stop laughing about it and try and do something about it.
There are quite a few people where creating safe housing for military families is really their passion project. That's what they want to do. So it's important to, instead of just keeping that grievance local, we take it to those nonprofits and support them and say, hey, this is who you need to talk to, because they probably know a lot more than I do.
Yeah. And that's not maybe our area of expertise, but I agree with you, supporting them so that they can better support changing things. I wholeheartedly agree. Well, I wanted to kind of just jump in and just introduce you to our audience. I feel like I know you, even though this is our first time kind of talking virtually face to face. But I feel like I already kind of know you because you're so great at sharing your story. But could you do me a favor and just kind of share a little bit about your story and your personal journey and what inspired you to start your health and fitness journey and then eventually your business and your career path?
Yeah. So I have been a military spouse for almost 10 years. My husband did reserve enlisted time before we went active duty. He decided he wanted to go the opposite route. So he returned from his deployment. I was almost done with school and I had started my career right outside Nashville where we lived, and most of our like teenage and then college and early adult life was. I was classically trained as an English education teacher. I taught 7th grade English. He graduated college, commissioned, went on to do basic officer leadership course. BOLIC is what the Army calls it. So went on to do BOLIC. Another way of doing it is OCS. I know a lot of the other branches use OCS. So that TDY was over 6 months. So I stayed local and continued to teach. We got our first active duty station, which was Germany. We were both really excited about that. And I was told it's very easy to get hired as a teacher because there's schools everywhere. And, we need teachers. So I really went in very, very green to that first duty station, having only traveled to Mexico as an American, which that was going to a different country where, especially in Europe, I'd never been to Europe, was a very culture shocking experience for me. And then found out very, very quickly that getting hired as a teacher in the DODEA system, which is the system that the Oconus schools use to hire teachers, is very, very complex. And it does not really support the local population as much as bringing people overseas. So I got very, very frustrated. I left my home and everything I knew for the first time, and I had no purpose. I didn't know how to communicate this to my spouse. And at this point, we've been dating for a few years before we got married. So like I knew Ethan very, very well, but I had no idea how to communicate this to him, knowing that his career was taking off and I was literally riding the bus to and from Grafenbeer just so I could go use the gym and like hang out at the PX, but I didn't know what to do with myself. So I found this scholarship through my CAA where I actually went and got my personal training certification. And it was through that certification where I really learned a lot of the BS that is in online fitness, or even, weight loss companies, fitness marketing. Because truthfully, and I've shared this on several platforms before, is when I took that certification, I was still looking for the secret to my weight loss, to my fitness. And so it was really through that first course where I realized like, oh, there's some things that I need to change. And I learned how to structure strength programs and realized mistakes that I had made, especially in my early 20s, like when I would say my disordered eating was pretty high. So it was through that course where I realized, like, oh, I can now create programs for myself and I can create programs for other people. And I didn't actually use my personal training certification until 2020, which was 2 kids later. Our first was born less than a year after we were stationed in Germany, and she was born medically complex. So the majority of her first year, we were in and out of the hospital for multiple surgeries, and then got a surprise pregnancy test when I was 8 months postpartum with our second, Patrick. So that pretty much confirmed for me that I was not going back to the teaching world. Between having a medically complex child where we did not feel that going to daycare was the best place for her at that time, and then having a newborn, I was like, I can't go back to work. So I think there was part of me that's like, could I do something with this? And then we got through a really brutal Oconus PCS and PCS to Oklahoma. And then 2020 happened. And of course, before the shutdown, I decided I was going to open this virtual coaching business. And I really did not have any idea what to do, how to run a business, how to make sure that I was balancing my time with what I was charging. All I really was going off of was what I was seeing on other Instagram profiles with high following. And so it probably took me, I would say, 3 years to really hone in how I wanted to coach. And then I would say it probably took me another year to really recognize, like, this is my message and this is my audience, and not everybody is going to agree with it, and that's okay. And so to really understand how to speak to my audience, just speak general advice that anyone could take, but also protect my time and my business as well. That's definitely taken me the better part of 4 years, for sure.
Absolutely. It takes that time because you're so anxious to get your business going and make it a business and profitable. And then you realize, oh no, now I'm working too much and my work-life balance is off. Now what? How do I fix this?
Yeah. How do I fix this? How do I still create a product that's marketable? How do I create a product that means something at the same time? Like working in like a digital space versus having a tangible product or doing like in-person training has been very interesting. I have learned a lot. I probably feel like I have a second college degree just in this field.
Absolutely. Did you ever think you were going to be doing digital marketing, email marketing as I'm a fitness coach,
No.
video editing?
Yeah, video editing, audio, voicing over, doing how-tos and tutorials, like not even on my radar. But I also recognize now, looking back, that I couldn't see, as a 26-year-old brand new teacher who didn't really know what active duty looked like I couldn't see in front of my face. I had no idea what the next 10 years would have looked like and the pivot that I had to make.
Honestly, I think that if there was like an overarching theme of military spousedom, the theme is I cannot picture what my life is going to be 5 years from now. Everything, you're just kind of hoping, I have to take a direction. I'm going to go down this path and I'm going to give it my all and understand that we don't know.
We're very marketable. Yeah. I don't know why military spouses don't teach resiliency. Honestly, I thought about that the other day. I was like, you know what? Why aren't we the ones teaching resiliency? We can share so many stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I can almost guarantee that most of us are not working our same career paths that we started in. Yeah, we have to figure it out. And I think you and I are kind of similar. I started my business in 2019, right before. So we're kind of on the same path. And so I understand that like 4 to 5 years, and it's a learning process. There is a learning curve for sure, especially in the online space.
Was 2020 beneficial for you? Like, did you feel like it was helpful, or did you feel like it just kind of was this stalemate?
I think it was helpful. I had already intended to switch into the online space.
Okay.
I'd already taken steps in that direction. And then the shutdown happened. It really made me have to quickly take action. So it was beneficial in that space. I think it was also really beneficial because people had been thinking about fitness in one way, that if I'm going to work with a personal trainer, I need to go and physically be in that space with that person, and that person needs to tell me what to do, and they need to count my reps and then tell me what to do next and then count my reps. And that's how it works. And so I think the shutdown did kind of help because it forced people to think of fitness in a different way. And maybe I don't need a coach to be there watching my every move. I can take a little bit more ownership of my program, but the things I need most are the program and the accountability. those are the things that I probably need more than someone standing there and watching my every move and counting every rep. Do you agree?
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, if there was a year for me to start coaching in the virtual space, it had to have been 2020 because people needed guidance on what to do when they were stuck at home. I think I did 2 or 3 in-person contracts and met some excellent people. One of them was an active duty service member. So that was actually really beneficial for her because we were able to really make sure that she was, passing and then scoring high on the ACFT. The other one ended up becoming a really good friend of mine in Hawaii, and that was nice to build that relationship. But I would say, because I always existed in that virtual space, that kind of feels like my bread and butter is delivering, a well done virtual fitness program, whether we're talking about.
And that takes a very different skill set. I don't think that some trainers are going to be better in person, which is great. It does take a different skill set, a different dependability, some skill at the digital space and systems, all of that. So there is definitely a path if you're good at that, if you like it, if you don't hate it. So yeah, you capitalize on that.
Yeah, for sure.
As a military spouse who is having to juggle relocations and kids and a spouse who has the mission and comes and goes, how do you balance the demands of military life with also running a business and being a mom and being a wife and maintaining a fitness routine?
When I figure out my answer, I'll let you know because it changes all the time. But I think maybe that's the key to it is some days it is the bare minimum and that's okay. I think for me, at least, being organized in, what I need to do for work and to at least get those things done, especially being virtual, makes that very, very easy. So having a very clear cut thing that I do every single day in order to coach well has helped me. And that's something that I recognize that I can't wing, that I need to, when we're talking about running a business, specifically having very clear objectives for every single day is super important because at the end of the day, your service or your product is what is bringing in revenue as a business owner. So I think organization is probably the one thing that I would say kind of keeps everything in line. But I think also recognizing what is in my circle of concern and then what's outside my circle of concern. So inside my circle of concern is keeping the kids safe and, keeping myself safe and healthy, whatever that looks like. And then outside are things that I can't control. And that's what kind of day my autistic son is going to have, or if we do need to take my medically complex daughter to the hospital, or knowing that, we have several doctor's appointments coming up and I'm probably not going to get a workout in, but can I put food together for myself so that I'm not running through the drive-through both on the way to the children's hospital and then on the way back from the children's hospital. So just finding small things that I can control and then checking in with myself and recognizing sometimes just doing enough is enough. It's not trying to overdo it every single day because the truth is I probably fall short one of those hats or one of those tasks that I wear daily.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, because what I'm kind of hearing from you is that you're okay with not being perfect, not having a perfect meal plan, a perfect fitness routine. Some days you might not get in a workout when you had intended. Does that all sound true?
Yeah, I think it's really important to remember that there's different seasons of fitness. I would say right now for me, something that I've struggled with over the last year is that I'm not the fittest I've ever been. And when I say fittest, I don't mean smallest or leanest. I just mean physical capability. I actually did a workout today and I was like, wow, I'm winded and I shouldn't have been, but recognizing that we're not always going to be the fittest we've ever been. Certainly should not always be the leanest we've ever been. There's a baseline level of strength that we can maintain as long as we don't have all the, certain outliers where we're dealing with health complications or caregiver stuff, which that's a very niche group. I know not everyone fits that caregiver role, but motherhood comes into play, moving, PCSing comes into play, all these things where fitness might not be your number one priority right now, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that you did something wrong. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't take care of your body. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen to your body and check in with it. It just means that maybe we shouldn't be so hard on ourselves when it comes to what size we're wearing, or, like maybe we don't need to be getting on the scale or tracking macros. Maybe we just need to focus on making sure we're eating enough and getting enough sleep, getting outside, getting in the sunshine, things like that.
If you, as a listener to this episode, were able to see us, I am nodding my head pretty profusely to a lot of what Taylor's saying, because I think that's such an important message in this podcast. And when I'm talking to my clients, we talk about these seasons, and especially you were saying seasons of fitness. Absolutely. Seasons of military life go hand in hand with that. And especially a lot of the women, when I start working with them, a lot of the mindset stuff that we work through is they're feeling like they constantly have to be perfect, constantly have to be seeing progress. And when we're not seeing progress or we're not perfect with our fitness program, then that must be a failure. And I love hearing you say it. It's how I feel as well. And I know it's hard as a listener to be hearing this from two fitness professionals, but we are not perfect. We are not always perfectly fit, strong, on our routines. And if you can take any one message away from this, maybe that's it, is that we don't expect perfect from ourselves. And we hope that you guys don't expect perfect from yourselves. And as an athlete too, you know that there's on-season training, there's off-season training. So we're not always high peak performance.
For sure. The other part about that too is transitioning from an athlete space. I mean, there's been a couple documentaries that have come out about kind of the darker side of athletics. I think generally we push our young folks a little too hard to enter competitive arenas too early. Looking back now as a kid that was a one sport athlete that spent all of their time either practicing or playing to get a college scholarship, and then to go to college and those rose-colored glasses be pulled off very, very quickly, and realizing that my teammates are great. I'll leave that there. But I've been duped into a program where, things were not great. But I think that the mentality around sports, especially in America, is very interesting, because not everyone is going to be a D1 athlete, but this idea that you have to earn everything. So, I mean, I even remember being someone that was done with college sports, walked into an acquaintance's CrossFit gym, enjoyed it because it was competitive, but thought that I still had to earn and win everything. And that actually translated to like earning the perfect body, or like all these things that really didn't matter when it came to long-term fitness. And so letting go a lot of that, and even in interviewing potential one-on-one clients that are like, well, I was a former athlete, I want someone to yell at me and to push me. And I'm like, no, you don't. Because, if I'm yelling at you and I'm pushing you in that way, like eventually you're not going to trust me. There's a difference between encouragement and then being so harsh or so restrictive with a client that they're actually averting away from exercise. Like that's not what.
Which is the last thing that we want as coaches.
Exactly. So, I think that falls right into that conversation about the all or nothing mentality of like, we're either on a diet doing this 5-day program in hopes that we drop X amount of weight, or we're not doing anything. Well, why can't we find that middle ground? Maybe it is strength training 3 days a week and we're cutting out Starbucks. And if it grows into something more, great. But if we're able to maintain this baseline, we're still reducing health risk factors.
Yeah, you're still going to live longer, be able to enjoy those longer years, all of that.
At 80 years old, you can wipe your own butt. Like,
yeah. And not worry about falling over on the sidewalk and breaking your hip, and have someone take care of you for the next 10 years. Yeah. Those are things we don't think about now because we gain wisdom as we get older.
We have some years ahead of us, but
yeah, absolutely. Honestly, you and I probably have a 3-part episode on this. So I will reserve my long-winded comments. Yeah, I think we should definitely have you back on, because you bring up really good conversations that we could definitely keep talking on. But for the sake of our time now, I was wondering, you brought up really great points on this. I'm just really curious. In this podcast, we talk about having these stable rocks. And stable rocks are things that kind of keep you grounded when the rest of the world feels super unstable. And I think that kind of goes along with your conversation about controlling what you can, knowing what your realm of importance, I think you called it, is. So I was just wondering, what are some of your stable rocks, those things that make you feel grounded when everything feels like it's chaotic?
Mine are super simple. And I don't know if it's just because my experience with motherhood has been so different than a lot of my friends. but also just kind of in taking care of my own mental health. I think that both of my children are safe and healthy, especially our medically complex one, whether that means that she's in the hospital because that's where she needs to be, or she's at home, which means that her health is stable. And that it's very cliche for me to say that he's my best friend, but he is probably the person that I've talked to, set aside like deployments and field time, is the person that I talk to most and I'm most vulnerable with. So it's that my husband is happy. Like those are kind of the two things, that my kids are safe and healthy and that my husband is happy. And, I can build a lot off of that. I think, that sounds very simple and probably to some people kind of underwhelming, like that's it. But I think that they are the three people that bring me the most joy, and that they're the three people that I do everything for. I would not have started this business had it not been for Macy, because I recognized that I needed something where I could sit next to a hospital bed if I needed to and work.
I think you found such a great niche for yourself, having the athletic background, having experience and education in teaching. So it's a perfect fit. And yeah, like you were saying, COVID did not hurt.
Nope, definitely did not. I talked to a former teacher friend. That was probably like last year. I was like, I'm definitely not doing what I was doing. She's like, you are. It's just a different audience.
Totally. Yes.
You can package it a little bit differently. Like I can use a little bit more sarcasm, because sometimes my 7th graders did not pick up on my sarcasm, and I can have a little bit more candid conversations with people. But yeah, I am still doing the same thing.
Yeah. Thank you for recognizing that, because so often we discount. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do, what I go into college for or whatever, and we discount ourselves.
Oh, yes.
But you are doing it. You're actually marrying two things that you're an expert at together. Yeah. I was kind of smirking while you were saying what your stable rocks are, because you were kind of saying it seems simple. And I was kind of smirking because I was thinking, wow, that's so selfless. You actually gain a lot of your stability from making sure that important people in your life are taken care of and happy. And that makes you happy. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like I mentioned before, I'll be the first to tell anyone I'm in therapy, because there are things that I have witnessed as a parent that I don't wish that any other parent go through. And I recognize that, there are some areas of my mental health where, I feel that I need to be in control and responsible for anything. So, I say those things with a grain of salt, that like, I do recognize that there are things within my life that I can't control. And that's something that I have to work very hard at. But I think that also at the end of the day, when I think about that perfect moment that, sometimes we cling to when things aren't going great, whether we're talking about like PCSing and we're sitting in a hotel, or, we're having a rough day, it's sitting with my kids and my husband, that brings me the most peace in that moment.
Oh, well, that's really nice. And also, I second the therapy. Therapy is on my stable rocks, because I'm also kind of a control person. When you live in this military life, you're just banging your head up against a wall when you're trying to control a lot of stuff. Or, I'm asking my husband for answers to questions that only he could give me, and he doesn't have the answers, and it's just not good for the marriage. So therapy is very helpful.
I want to make this a soundbite. Like, it's again very niche to the military community, but I remember saying this to my husband. Our orders to Germany were messed up. Like the dog was on our orders, but I wasn't. And it was like weeks. I mean, it was like weeks before we got on a plane. So there was very little turnaround time to get our orders amended so that I could go, which also affected household goods and unaccompanied and all these other things and tickets. And I did not understand. And I was on the phone with my husband. I was like, don't they understand that they're messing with our lives? And now I look back and I'm like,
it's very relatable, because I know I've said those things for sure.
It definitely took me until like 2 duty stations later to realize, like, I mean, they know, but I don't think they care, and it's going to happen again. So you might as well stop stressing about it.
Okay, well, I'm not there yet. I probably need 1 or 2 more times of going through that.
There are still things where I'm like, why is this not an issue to you people?
Yeah, do you not understand how inconvenient this is for me and making it about me? It's not really about me, but it's inconvenient.
Yes, I sat in on a Facebook Live. I don't know if Coral House Productions, they're doing that documentary on the modern military spouse.
I did see that through Spousely. Yes, I did see that.
I followed the director. I'm probably saying it wrong. Her name is Jennifer Cummings. She's also a military spouse, and she owns this marketing company, and they normally do like film production to help businesses showcase their products and stuff. So this is kind of like her, Monica Fullerton, who's the CEO of Spousely. And then I think there's 2 or 3 more like well-known MilSpouse entrepreneur executives that are kind of like spearheading this program. But I sat in on this Facebook Live today, just kind of like listening to how, they're doing this documentary and kind of, their passion behind it and why it needs to be done. And we talk a lot about all these little things that just snowball into this constant stress of military life. And it's like, well, no wonder military spouses are fed up or they feel like they're not being supported. And it's because sometimes we put our own health on the back burner or our children's health on the back burner. I could probably talk for an hour about every time EFMP families move, all these additional moving parts of, what happens when an EFMP family moves. We talk about the career aspect of it, like every time we start over and we have these massive gaps in a resume and we're told to fill it with volunteer hours, but like who is getting hired off volunteer hours? And then expected to keep, a brave face, a very calm, supportive face in front of the military community when it comes to us not unloading or complaining or being told that we're complaining. And so it's kind of just like everyone has a breaking point. Everybody has a threshold.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest enough to say that this last PCS was extremely tough. And I ended up to the point where my nerves were so shot that I was in the doctor trying to explain to her that I was having a weird immune response and my throat was closing up and on the verge of tears and just trying to express myself as calmly as possible. And I was reading her doctor's notes after, and I think she gave me anti-anxiety meds. And just the way she was describing me, like, was tearful in the office. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I was trying not to lose my shit.
Yeah.
That was me not trying to lose, but that's the kind of care that we're given, is not understanding and empathy of like, oh, you're actually having massive amounts of stress. How can I help you?
And again, primary care in the DoD sector is probably something else I could speak like over an hour on. And I have friends that work in primary care. I'm very respectful and understand like their scope of practice supersedes mine 100%. But I remember my primary care calling me a couple of months ago and giving me back my blood work. And she was giving me all these generic examples of how to improve it. And I was like, ma'am, I'm already doing those things. And she's like, well, do you have additional support? Like, how much are you sleeping? And I was like, I'm not sleeping. Like at that point,
yes,
Macy's health wasn't in a good place. Like we're going to the ER probably once every other week. Sleep is just not something that happens a lot. So between like working late, and she's like, do you have extra support? And I was like, I'm on a major military installation that there's rotations all the time. Like, no, my spouse isn't here. And she's like, do you have any support? And I was like, no, you cannot be new to this.
Now what?
Yes. So, she's like, I hope that you get some help. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
You've said it so much more clearly than I was able to. That is the vibe that you're kind of left with, is good luck.
Yeah. I hope that you get some help. And it's like,
here's some anxiety meds.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I want to preface this by saying like taking the anxiety meds is okay. Like I do.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, if you're a mom who is taking care of your kids by yourself and taking meds that are making you groggy is not going to be, the best plan for you probably, because you need to be alert and ready to help in case something happens. So yeah, you're absolutely right. It is totally okay. You need meds. Thank you for clarifying that. And also, can we have some other support? There have to be better options.
This is one of those topics where we could literally beat this topic dead. I don't know what the answer is. I feel like it's above my pay grade. I know people that have excellent ideas of how to fix it. I know that there's, an entire handful of people that are like, you know what, so-and-so had it way worse. Like, this is just part of the military spouse life. And I'm like, I mean, to a point, but I also know that through my own life experiences, I've gained empathy by recognizing that no one else has it worse. I've had people come to me and they're like, I'm so sorry, like with what's going on in your life or whatever situation, like you have it so much worse than I do. And I'm like, no, I don't. Yes, what's going on in my life sucks, but what you're dealing with is valid too. I'm not going to let you just dismiss your own trauma or, whatever it is. So I think that that's hard because like empathy is very ambiguous. Like that's a huge gray area. It's very easy for me to coach with empathy, but like when it comes to policy for supporting the military community and helping stabilize military families, empathy is not black and white. It's very ambiguous.
Yeah, and I'm a big like solutions, not problems person. I'm always like, well, if you have a problem, come to me with a solution as well. But I think you're right. There's something to be said for having some kind of common experience and empathy for each other, because we all do have some level of bad experience with it. I don't have the solutions either. When we all figure it out, yeah, hopefully things
well
will
above
change.
my pay grade at this point. I also don't know if I'm willing to lose that much sleep to solve the problem.
Yeah, there's not enough of it to.
I don't know if I have enough time in the day. But yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I think there is a time to air grievances, and then there's a time to say, okay, what can we do about this? And sometimes it looks like a very small step, like, did you drink enough water today? Just kind of circling back to like fitness stuff.
What we can control.
Yeah, what we can control. And sometimes it looks like, writing a letter to your congressman. It depends on the day. It depends on the situation.
Yeah, or therapy.
Yeah, therapy is very
helps.
Hey, fellow MilSpouse. Ever felt the frustration of being forced to restart your fitness routine every time military life throws you a curveball? Whether it's a PCS, a deployment, or a short-term assignment, disruptions can make progress feel nearly impossible. But now there's a solution designed just for you. The PCS-Proof Fitness Program from FitPath Coaching. Designed by a woman in military life, for women in military life. It's flexible, adaptable, and affordable. No more setbacks or starting over, just steady progress on your terms. Visit fitpathcoaching.com/PCS-proof-fitness to start your journey today. And as a special offer for our podcast listeners, get your first month free with promo code POD4FREE. That's POD, the number 4, FREE. Say goodbye to stress and frustration and hello to a stronger, healthier, happier you with PCS-Proof Fitness. Join us today and get ready to conquer any challenge military life sends your way. PCS-Proof Fitness, join today.
Okay, so I hope you can all see now why I was just so excited to have Taylor join us. You can hear her authenticity in what she does and her passion for her craft. She keeps it real about the real life challenges that we experience as women in military life, and that's what we love on the PCS Proof podcast. And we're not done yet. There is so much more to our candid conversation, and Taylor was so generous with her time and her insights that I just didn't want to cut anything out. So I decided to break our interview up into 2 parts. This wraps up the first part of our refreshing conversation with Taylor Hester. Next week, in part 2, we'll dive into what Taylor has in store for her business and her clients in the future. And we have an awesome discussion on the best and the worst trends in the fitness industry right now, plus a lot more. You definitely don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow or subscribe so that you'll be the first to be notified as soon as part 2 is released. And while you're there, take a second to rate and leave us a review on your favorite listening platform. Your feedback helps us bring more amazing content and amazing guests just like Taylor to the show. Remember to follow us on Instagram at PCS-Proof Podcast for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and more. And you can find Taylor on Instagram at taylor.hester.fitness. I've also included a link to her website in the show description, so feel free to click on that and check out more of her amazing content and her courses there. And as always, if you have questions or topics that you'd like us to cover, feel free to reach out on Instagram, or you could submit your question directly to us through Spotify. Until next week, if you haven't had a chance to already, you may want to listen or re-listen to episode 5 of the podcast, where we go through the 4 distinct seasons of military life. And we just recently released all 3 parts of our series on decoding stress for military spouses. And then meet me back here for part 2 with Taylor Hester next week. Have a wonderful weekend and week ahead. And remember, no matter where in the world military life sends you, Together, we are PCS-Proof. Adios. And here is the legal language. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to replace professional advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or fitpathcoaching.com. Moreover, we are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast.